Hi everyone. So during my latest pregnancy, I was in dire need of some new clothes. As someone who likes to make most of my own clothes, and I'm gotten to be pretty particular about what I choose to put on my body, and the fact that modern maternity fashion has a lot missing, there's not very much selection. Yeah, I do prefer to make my own clothes even when I'm pregnant. But as someone who is very busy, I needed these items that I was going to make to be long lasting, to not only work for me during my pregnancy, but also into my postpartum and breastfeeding journey as well. And I obviously needed them to be elegant clothes, but also wearable in my day-to-day life. So I love historical fashion, but most of us know that you can't typically just take a historical dress, sew it up, and wear it in your day-to-day life unless you want to look like you're wearing a costume. Most of the time, you need to just kind of take a couple historical details and then translate it into some sort of more modernized dress. But there's one exception to this, in my opinion, and that is Regency era dresses. Regency dresses and other types of women's wear from the early 1800s are wonderful, in my opinion, for wearing in a modern day wardrobe. They often don't really need any changes to be able to be wearable out in your modern day life. Especially for pregnancy, they are perfect because of their flattering and comfortable empire waists. Let me tell you, there is nothing like an empire waist in pregnancy to just help you feel a little more elegant and a little bit more slimmed down than something with a lower waistline that basically just accentuates how large you are feeling in your abdomen at the time. So I found an awesome pattern straight from 1805 in the historical patterns book, Patterns of Fashion 1 by Janet Arnold, and I fell in love with all of the unique details this dress had, such as removable long sleeves underneath short puff sleeves, diagonal pin tucks along the bodice, a button-up fall front bodice, which makes this dress perfectly nursing accessible, as well as some built-in bust support that means I can wear this dress and I can get that elegant Regency look without needing to actually wear Regency undergarments. So in this video, I will be sharing with you the making process of this dress, with all of its nifty details like the diagonal pin tucks, the fall front bodice, the built-in bust support, and everything in between. Finally, I'll show you the finished dress, how to fasten and put it on, and share with you how I like it and how it turned out for me in my life. So I've actually made two of these dresses in different colors, so you may be seeing both of these dresses throughout the video. Let's jump into it. Before we jump into the body of the video, I'd like to give a shout out to the sponsor of this video, Ana Luisa Jewelry. So Ana Luisa is an eco-conscious, affordable jewelry company that makes classy jewelry pieces, and they do so with a carbon neutral footprint. So they use a lot of recycled materials, and they're just overall very conscious of their impact on the environment, so that is great. These classy jewelry pieces really elevate the way I feel on a daily basis, even on those days where I'm wearing pajamas in the house and not doing any makeup. Just putting on a pair of nice earrings really elevates the way I feel, and I love that about Ana Luisa's jewelry. So today I want to talk to you about their new line of personality pendants, which I am wearing today. So these pendants feature vintage vibe hand-drawn designs that represent different elements like earth, air, fire, water, and light, which is the pendant design that I chose for myself. First of all, the design is just gorgeous and beautiful, and second of all, represents something not necessarily that I embody currently, but that I would like to embody more of. And that is, for me, the ability to envision something that we want for our life or a different direction that we would like to go, and being able to bring that into the physical reality of our life. And that's something that's really important to me, especially right now in my life, because I'm at a transition point, having just had a baby, and I'd really like to have more of the ability to visualize a different direction for anything, any area of my life, and to be able to bring it into reality. And to me, it represents our personal power to choose through our thoughts, words, and actions the future direction of our life. To me as a mom, this is especially important because so much of how my day goes and even how my whole family is influenced by my thoughts, my behavior, my words. And so that's why I chose the Air Element Personality Pendant. And I really recommend checking out all of their pendants. They have really cool designs, and check out all of their jewelry pieces. They are really gorgeous. Be sure to check the description for your very own 20% off code. Thanks, Anna Luisa. So here's the original dress as well as the pattern that's found in Janet Arnold's Patterns of Fashion 1. I absolutely loved this dress at first sight with all of its details, its closure method, its hidden built-in bust support, the diagonal pinstripes, just everything. Okay, so I did make a mock-up of this dress. If you'd like to see the detailed view of how I adjusted this, then go watch my maternity wardrobe planning video, which will be linked in the description. Okay, so I self-drafted the pattern. I didn't grade up the pattern from the book. I mostly just used that as a visual reference to create my own pattern pieces, after which, of course, I adjusted the mock-up. And now I'm cutting this out of my final dress fabric, which is this lovely white and blue pinstriped cotton. I like to draft my patterns without seam allowance, so I'm just going ahead and adding that manually right now and then cutting out my pieces. Okay, so now that my pattern pieces are cut out, I'm just beginning to pin together the back bodice princess seams of this dress. I absolutely love the shape and design of Regency bodices, especially the back princess seam shape. I just think it's so universally flattering. Okay, so now I'm beginning to sew together all of my seams. So this is a sleeve seam that I'm just sewing together. Bodice was fully lined. I didn't have to worry about finishing the seams on the inside. Just pressing that sleeve over a seam roll. Okay, so now I'm working on those bust support pieces, which actually form sort of the basis of the bodice. These are what pin close the bodice, and then the bodice fall front, which is the rectangular panel that's pin tucked, that just goes over top of this. So these pieces are what is going to give the dress that wonderful built-in bust support, which means that I don't have to wear it over Regency undergarments to get the Regency bust shape that is so indicative of that era. So this was my second time making this dress, and I decided I wanted to have double layers of fabric for these bust support pieces, especially since the lining was just this lightweight linen. I wanted an extra layer. So I layered up the lightweight linen with some of my outer body fabric and just sewed those together to form those bust support and bust closure pieces. And you'll see in a moment how these fit in with the dress. It's a little hard to conceptualize until you actually see it. Okay, so here is my outer bodice all sewn together now, without the lining, of course, and I'm just showing to you how those bust support pieces will go. They'll just attach right there to the side, and just showing you again with the lining how they'll attach to either side of the bodice front like this, and then they come and overlap under the bust, which sort of helps lift everything, and that's why it is like built-in bust support. Okay, so those bust support pieces have now been pinned in place. So now it's time to attach the bodice lining to the bodice outer fabric, and of course I'm going to do this all around the neckline by sewing them right sides together, and then later we'll be pressing that and turning them right side out. And after that's stitched, I'm just turning it. Well, first I'm trimming the seam allowance, and then I will be turning it, and I will be pressing those seam allowances towards the lining. And in any areas where this seam allowance is curved, which of course it is around areas of the neckline, I will be putting little clips in it with the embroidery scissors just to make it turn more smoothly. And now it's time to understitch. So understitching is basically used anytime that there is a bodice lining or even a neckline facing, and it basically just means stitching the seam allowance down to the lining, but this is done very close to the original neckline seam. So it's basically just a way of holding the lining down towards the inside of the garment so it won't be seen at all when the garment's being worn. And of course, it just helps keep everything very neat and smooth and streamlined. And it's basically like my number one tip for making a professional looking bodice is understitching. Okay, so now it's time for the fun part of working on the front panel of the bodice. So this is the part of the bodice that's going to be visible. It's that beautiful rectangular panel that fastens with buttons on either top corner, and it has those gorgeous diagonal pin tucks. And in this case, the pin tucks are going along the grain of the fabric, and the rectangular panel is actually cut on the bias. So the stripes and the pin tucks both are going along the diagonal when it's being worn, and I just think that's a beautiful detail. And for this, I'm using my vintage pin tucker attachment, which, trust me, if you want to try pin tucks, get one of these attachments. You can find them on eBay. They're very inexpensive and they make the process ridiculously easier than the first couple times I did pin tucks and I had to do it all completely manually. It saves a lot of time and it really makes the process of pin tucking a joy, which is good because pin tucks are really pretty. They really add a lot of interest to any garment. Okay, so I forgot to mention that I did those pin tucks in just a wide swath of fabric before cutting out my actual pattern piece. That is really the easiest way to work with pin tucks. When you want the pin tucks to be covering a whole area of a garment, you first do the pin tucks, leaving a lot of extra fabric, more than you'll need, and then you cut your pattern piece out. And the simple reason for this is that the process of creating pin tucks in the fabric will take up extra fabric, so it will make your piece of fabric become smaller. So that's why we wouldn't want to cut out this piece before doing the pin tucks. We cut it out after. So I'm just adding my seam allowance because again my pattern does not include that, and just cutting out my panel out of the pin tucked fabric. Okay, so off camera, I went ahead and attached my sleeves to the bodice. These sleeves are actually comprised of 3 layers. There is an undersleeve, an outer short puff sleeve, and then the long sleeve, which is actually removable. And so I attached them simply to the outer part of the bodice, and then to attach the lining, I'm just turning under the edges of the lining around the armholes and just hand stitching that in place. I'm sure there are other more like modern, faster methods of doing it, but this is just what I have found is most reliable for me and most easy for my brain to wrap around. Okay, so now I'm at a point where I'm ready to try on this bodice and just see how it fits. And this is mostly going to be to determine the placement of my buttons. And again, these are the buttons that will be holding the front panel of the bodice in place. And this is what makes this dress totally like maternity and breastfeeding friendly, because obviously it's easier to breastfeed because you can just unbutton that panel and bring it down to breastfeed. So I'm just showing you how well those front panels work, both as a closure method when they're pinned together, as well as built-in bust support. They really create a much more lifted silhouette than just a bra alone would do. So to the modern eye, it looks kind of strange to fasten a dress using pins, but this was actually done very commonly in the historical era, especially when women were wearing stays and corsets under their clothing all the time. They didn't have to worry about pins poking them. But even in my case, where I am not wearing stays under this dress, I have pretty much never been poked with this dress. It's very comfortable and it's a very sustainable way for me to keep closing it. So this is what it's going to look like with that front panel in place, and off camera I went ahead and finished the edges of the panel just with these strips of fabric that I closed the edges with. And there's going to be this waistband, which I created off camera, or at least I've begun to create off camera, as you can see. It's just an interfaced strip of fabric with the edges folded in. And the waistband will be attached just to the front panel, not to those bust support pieces, but then it will begin attaching to the rest of the bodice around the armpit area, like just before the side seam begins. Where a normal side seam would be, that's where the waistband begins to attach. So it's a little hard to conceptualize, but basically that's part of the genius of this dress design. The original makers were pretty smart in how they planned out just how this dress would close and how it would be relatively adjustable. Okay, so now I'm working on the skirt. The skirt is very simple. It's just 2 big rectangles of fabric cut to really your desired dimensions. So I just decided what length I wanted and I left a lot of extra for a nice big wide hem. And then I cut mine very generously on the width because I like lots of gathers, especially for a maternity dress, because that's what makes this fit my big belly. So I'm just adding my gathering stitches. And I'm also adding some basic pad stitching just to hold my interfacing in place to my waistband. This was just sew on waistband interfacing, not iron on. So I'm just holding it in with stitches, which is a lot quicker actually than you might think. Okay, so once that stitching is done, I can begin to pin this waistband into place. So this waistband is basically the unifying element that will attach the bodice to the skirt, as well as the bodice to the front button-up panel. And then the waistband continues to form the side ties of this dress. Now, as far as I can tell, the original dress did not have a visible side tie aspect like I have. It had some sort of internal ties, but I could not quite figure out how they did that. And in the end, I just ended up continuing the waistband into this visible outer tie, which I think adds a nice little modern twist to this dress, and I like it. So the gathering stitches I used on the skirt were actually to form what's called cartridge plates, which have to be stitched on by hand in order to keep their beautiful appearance, because they're sort of like a pleat that sticks straight out. It's not flattened down. So the only way to sew it properly is with one stitch through each pleat. And I actually love sewing cartridge plates. It sounds like a lot of work, but I love it and it doesn't take too long. And here's the finished dress. So of course I finished the hem off camera, and here are the side ties, and it fits beautifully with my big belly, and I absolutely love this dress. I'm currently now about a month postpartum, and I'm still loving it. It is just very elegant and flattering both for pregnancy and postpartum, and I'm sure it would be flattering for regular life as well. Here's the other version of this dress I made. I made this around Christmas time in this lovely emerald green color, back when my belly was a bit smaller. And I love both versions of the dress. I must say the green is probably one of my favorite colors that I've made a garment out of. And yes. Okay guys, I absolutely love how this dress turned out. It was everything I hoped for and more. I feel so put together and elegant when I put on this dress, even if 5 minutes before I have been feeling like a tired, massive elephant who's just laying around on the couch like a beached whale. I can put on this dress. It does tend to be more of a special occasion dress for me, so I wear it when I'm like going out to church or if I'm going to be filming a video. It's still comfortable, but it's not quite as comfortable as what I've been preferring to wear lately, which is pajamas and a cardigan, basically. But when I want to feel nice, it is perfect. I absolutely love, love, love the built-in bust support on this dress. If you've watched any of my prior content about vintage bras, for example, you'll know that I'm not a huge fan of modern bras, and they don't really give me a lot of support. I am larger busted to begin with, and especially in pregnancy, of course, this is exaggerated. And when you add to the fact that you also have a big belly, it can really just kind of make you feel like rather unflattering. I don't know what other word to use. But this dress, I really like it because it has this built-in bust support that sort of like lifts things up a little bit, much like Regency undergarments would have done. So, which means that I don't need to wear Regency undergarments. I can wear my modern bra, and then this dress has the little bit of built-in extra like lift. So it's just more slimming on your upper body, which is what I like to say, the only thing you can slim when you're pregnant. And because it has the empire waist, it accentuates your very upper body, which is the only part of me that remains a little bit slim. And then the rest of it, the skirt, and it's a long skirt, it just kind of like sails over the rest of your belly and streamlines everything and just helps me feel a little more elegant than I would have felt otherwise. So I love both of the versions of this dress I made. I made the exact same pattern. One was in a royal green and the other was in a white and blue pinstripe. So I do definitely prefer the green color. I always feel very regal when I'm wearing it. But the actual like patterning and fit of the pinstriped dress was slightly better because that was the second one I made. And so I knew a little tweaks that I had to do to the pattern. So they both are good. I mean, the green one I prefer the color and the blue and white one I prefer the fit, but they're both great. Okay, so that was everything I wanted to say. At the time of filming this video, I am still currently pregnant. I'm right at the end, waiting for baby. So this video is going to be released after the baby is born. So I can't currently say how it is going to work for me in the postpartum, but I suspect it's going to be awesome because it's totally nursing accessible. It's flattering for various different body types. I mean, let's face it, if something can be flattering when you're 9 months pregnant, it's definitely going to be flattering to a postpartum belly as well. So that's a great thing. And I will say it's starting to get a bit tight on me now. I'm right at the end of my pregnancy, just a couple weeks to go. So I imagine it will probably fit a bit better once I'm in the postpartum, and obviously my abdomen will be much smaller and hopefully my arms will be a little bit smaller by then too. But yeah, I love these dresses. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, leave your comments or questions below, and subscribe to this channel for historical handmade fashion as well as historical natural hair care content. You'll also want to check out the accompanying blog post that will be linked in the description, and I have a free weekly email newsletter on my blog that you can sign up for. If you appreciate my content and you'd like to support me, there is a super thanks button below the video where you can send me a small monetary thank you. And I also have a virtual buy me a coffee button in the description, and thank you. I really appreciate it. Okay everyone, I'll see you on the next video.